Welcome to another episode of Misfit Social Podcast.
Paul's here.
Paul is here, and man, is he looking good.
Do you know where you are right now? You're here.
Oh.
You're here.
Golly, look at them diamond snaps.
Woo!
on that shirt.
I've had this shirt a long time, about to wear it out.
Oh, come on now.
It's my uniform.
You don't have to.
It's wearing us
You
out.
can't hide money. I mean, you can't hide money.
What money?
Yeah. It's all right. Don't have to downplay it. What brand is that? Is that double RL or
Lucky
you?
brand.
Okay. Are those Lucky jeans?
No, I don't even know what these jeans are.
Can we do anything to make you more comfortable? You're got everything you need.
Oh man.
Hey, do you have any Lucky brand jeans?
No.
Okay. Do you have any?
Not anymore. I had some, but I don't.
Are those the kind with the scrolly stuff on them?
No. That's.
I've been hating on those for a long time.
Yeah,
I never did go there.
That's oh my God, what's the name of that? They sell them at the Buckle. It's got all the threads on the back.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that whole.
I hated on
early
that.
2000s grunge.
I'm
look.
classic, man. Just Levi's, you know.
But the thing I like about
Affliction t-shirt.
Affliction, yes, that's it. Thank you. Yeah. So the Lucky brand jeans, though, I don't know if you noticed, but when you unzip the fly, it has wording inside of it that says Lucky You. So I don't know why that would be there, but it's there.
Me either, yes. Paul has no thoughts about it either.
Just going to leave the awkward silence there.
I was trying to get him to bite on it.
Silly boys.
I heard crickets in here.
All right, so I think in this episode, we want to talk about AI a little bit. And just a disclaimer, we are as proficient in AI as we are astronauts.
Yeah.
So it's just something we want to chat about. Thought it would be a fun discussion.
Just from a basic consumer, you know, someone facing the future or dealing with this technology.
Yeah, from a very basic, almost ignorant level, but how do we engage with it? What are we liking about it? What do we feel like the possibilities are? And then maybe it seems like there's a lot of fear mongering around the possibility of it. And is that true, not true? Just conspiracy theory.
I always just thought, well, this is just another, fad and just some fun thing or whatever, I didn't give much to it. But the first time I saw that AI was a thing for me was I had this 50-page document that I have written over the last couple of years, and it's a teaching. And so a friend of mine takes that document and plugs it into AI and says, spit me out a podcast, a literal, audible podcast.
Yep.
Two people talking, a man and a woman, and they walk through that document and talk about it, and you would think it was the real thing. Yeah. I am not kidding you. He didn't modify it. He didn't do anything. Yeah. It sounds like a 30-minute podcast.
Yeah.
So what was your feeling when you heard that?
It's scary.
Okay, so I want to push in on that. Why is that scary?
I don't know. It's otherworldly.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
Just because you don't know how that's happening?
Yeah, I mean, or what it leads to.
Okay.
Well, I would venture, technology always is trying to offer enchantment. And I think there might be a small amount there, but it probably doesn't ultimately satisfy, which is a whole nother subject. I don't want to get hung up there. I would just say that we're enchanted for a moment, but we also are living in a world where historical, maybe, loss of confidence in institutions.
Yeah.
And when we see that kind of power that's possible coming from mega corporations who are driving that technology, it feels just a little scary what that kind of power, for me at least, and I would venture to say that I may not be saying it exactly like a lot of people, but I would say somewhere in there is a fear of that in the wrong hands is as terrifying as every sci-fi dystopia we've ever read.
Yeah.
And maybe you haven't calculated it that much, but it's just a little bit of like, that's cool. And then that's a bit scary what someone could do with that.
It's like the beast and the image of the beast. Right?
Yeah, we're back on. Yeah, it does make you feel that way.
Spokesman for what? I saw a clip of a quarterback. Was it Aaron Rodgers? Somebody was reassessing a game.
Yeah.
And going back and saying what probably the fans would have said. Mm-hmm. But instead of supporting his teammates, he just like threw them under the bus. And it was all AI. Mm-hmm. It was actually him recounting the game and saying the things you would like to say about the game, but a quarterback would never say about his team.
Yeah.
Right.
He was throwing them under the bus for their failures and why they lost. And it was like, it took me a minute to realize, I'm like, I can't believe he's saying this. Yeah. This is crazy. And then I'm like, oh, it's AI.
Yeah. Well, with deep fake, just in general, the idea of taking your image and likeness, putting it in video, they have the ability to recreate your voice to say something that did not come out of your
That's
throat.
Exactly what I looked at.
I think our same friends, I had a climbing itinerary email that I sent to some of my clients for a climb from Mount Adams this year. And it's pretty detailed on things that they should be looking at, from exercise and fitness and gear and what we're going to do at certain times and all of that. And he just put that email into it, and it was a 30-minute podcast that had 2 hosts, and then an occasional third host came in with just talking about the climb and talking about all the things that people needed. That's almost freaky.
Yeah.
In fact, this is fake. This is a podcast.
Yeah, we're really not here. This is really not us.
Yeah, matter of fact, someone fed an email on what you're listening to right now.
It's not real. Yeah, I mean, I hear what's saying. I just kind of steel man the other side a little bit. Like, I mean, I don't find that necessarily any different than when someone posts a clip of something that was really said, whether it was of a politician, and the way they post it takes it out of context.
Exactly.
And so, I mean, the thing for me about that is I feel like as a human race, we need to work a little bit more. We need to work a little harder to build in what we believe about what we're seeing. So a lot of times now when we pick up our phone, if there's something on my social that I'm looking at, I tend to just believe it. And I don't think that's healthy in general. And my hope is from some of this is that with the AI questioning is that we would start to question a little bit more of what we're seeing instead of just believing it.
Yeah. I mean, public ignorance is not going away. And it is just like,
I think that is happening more and more. And I couldn't agree with you more. And then I kind of wanted to put a little finer point on what I had said earlier. And that's a great spot. Is I think most of us realize that there's something is happening in the eroding of our character as a culture, like a core sense of what is good, what is best, and good seems more and more to be whatever I say it is today. Mm-hmm. And if I have the strength, followers, willpower, means, or money to make mine get ahead of yours, well, then that's how it works. And something down deep inside, we know that that's not the right way to bring goodness into the world. And I'll just say these tools are just like anything else. They're going to be whatever you make them.
Yeah.
It scares me that we have a tool now that if someone's not really truly wanting to promote freedom or free speech or what is good for all, that they have more power to use that tool to create a lot of harm. But you can do a lot of good with it at the same time.
Yeah. And I would also say, though, that there is a hunger that's being built throughout the world for some sense of morality.
I agree.
That are things that we can hold to, because I think everybody is waking up to the craziness of what's happening that's not sustainable. And it's not that people don't believe in climate change. It's not that people don't believe that maybe the moralist of the 50s and 60s handled that message wrong, and that caused us to be like a little bit rebellious about that. And we went way, way, way left on everything. I feel like the hunger right now is, can we not just come back to center and just let's get some things that we can hold on to. And I can respect if you're this ism or that theology or that, but let's just have some handles that we can set down and agree upon. I really feel like pretty much everybody is coming back to that. And whether you voted for Trump or didn't vote for Trump, I really feel like that wave that happened is a little bit of the fed upness with the craziness. I mean, we've talked about Bill Maher and some other people, and he says, I didn't leave the left left me. Mm-hmm. They went into this crazy ass thought process that nobody really, it's such a small percentage of people who believe that. And it's digital, social media, everything that allowed that to be propagated, where before you didn't have that. And now I think everybody is just looking for some reprieve on that. And so getting back to the topic of AI, my hope in that is that we would just stop believing what we're seeing, stop being in an echo chamber, stop being in a group think, and just be like, I'm not going to believe that just because I see it on a headline.
Yeah, I think there's an eroding of trust, right? In many ways, it's like a little microcosm of it would be like how people will go into an environment and look for a boutique coffee shop versus, the big brands. It's like, oh, we know what that is. And you learn you're kind of done with big conglomerate things and go to the boutique. And I think what can happen with things like AI and just the advancement of technology is people start retreating actually to their tribe and to smaller places and to relationships and back to the core of what it means to be human, and kind of like almost, and maybe in fear or maybe in a hunger for what you're saying, something that you can put your hands on,
Yeah.
I'm really excited about the good that it can bring into the world, but I come back and I'm agreeing with everything you guys are saying. We need a rebaptism of just good critical thinking. But what concerns me is that's not being taught anymore. Like how to think, how to think well, how to think with some rationale to it. And like step by step to draw some good, healthy conclusions. Oh, you see this? Wow, that looks real. I'm going to wait. Let's fact check. Let's be sure. Before I draw a conclusion. And I would just say that I keep coming back to, I'm excited about the good of what it can be, but then the idea of a government or a personality able to implement tools
with nefarious ideas.
For mass population control of some sort, concerns me greatly, because I'm a civil liberties guy. I believe in our Constitution. I believe in the American experiment deeply.
Look what happened.
Free speech
in that meeting.
It's the core of our foundation, and these things could threaten that.
Yeah,
like the good, like the meeting we were in the other day. It was what, 2-hour meeting or an hour and some odd meeting. And that you saw the document before I did. What did it?
Yeah, let's. Okay, so this. On the back of my phone, I really love these little wallets, right? 'Cause I just hate bulk.
Yep.
And we had a meeting, and it went about 2 hours plus. And at the beginning of it, it was suggested by our good friend. Well, it was suggested in that group. It's like, we really need to take track of some of the things that are being said so we can remember the meeting notes later. And one person was like, "Oh, I got something." They left, came back, and I'm all for the wallet. Yep. And I'm all for even this device, but it caught me just a little bit because that's just how I'm wired. I'm like, I immediately thought of it in the form of eavesdropping. Not from my friend, but from the fact that he brought one of these. Yeah. If everyone can see it, it's a wallet. And I was like, what? That's an Apple wallet that just magnetizes to the back of your phone. Well, he plopped it right in the middle of the table. And then I noticed where the credit cards would go, there was just a little raised button, and just sat it there. And he said, just keep talking. And we talked for 2 hours, shared a lot of information. And the next day I got an itemized email with everything that was said in order. It recorded the whole conversation and then itemized everything in bullet points.
Yeah.
It created a mind map of the entire conversation that could be moved around. It had to-do lists. And that's exciting.
It ordered it in a logical order. Yeah. It wasn't necessarily the order we spoke about it even. It was like it categorized it.
Yeah.
Under headings.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And that's a great tool.
And when I looked at it, I totally recovered the whole meeting. you had the whole of what you needed there. I mean, great tool.
So
that's awesome.
It's a virtual assistant.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I guess all I would say is I'm super excited about it, and then wary and a little cautious about it. Because
and is that because you feel like somebody else is listening in, or?
Well, it's just the idea that on the back of your phone, you have a listening recording device, which can be used for good, or it could be used.
Yeah.
It could just be used for weird.
But so let me, and again, I'm just going to push back or steel man the other side of that.
Yeah, I want to.
So if you follow the TikTok debate, and we just recently labeled that as a no-go in U.S. that's getting ready to come before the Supreme Court. I mean, the reality is real, and it doesn't just get to TikTok. Anytime we agree to the T's and C's, the terms and conditions of all of these apps that we use, you're giving them access to your microphone and camera at any given time.
Yep.
So we're already, from an eavesdropping perspective,
oh my gosh,
we've already done that. And that's with, groups that we feel like are good, Amazon, Meta, whoever. The challenge is think about, I mean, hopefully no sitting U.S. official would have TikTok on their phone and it be in their house, but maybe their kid does. And does that phone get set somewhere? There's no way to know really what's going on there. So my point is, if we're going to live in that fear, we've got to push that all the way. It's not necessarily an AI thing. It's actually a phone problem.
Yeah.
And
it's bringing it to a head for me. I agree with you. I think we should. And for that reason, I get sent TikToks all the time, and I can't watch them because they won't even, you can't even go to the website anymore to just look at the TikTok that someone sent you. But I won't download that. Yes, I have Facebook. I have Instagram.
Yeah.
I don't have Snapchat. I don't have TikTok. But I'm trying to draw a line in my life. It's not perfect, but I'm not comfortable with constant surveillance. And the more that artificial intelligence builds, the stronger that web gets. And I really feel we should be thinking about what we're giving away. Yeah. Because there's quite literally billions, if not trillions of dollars made and going to be made just off of the data we freely give away.
Yeah. I mean, for me, that I feel like that doesn't really give me much heartburn, because the one thing that the government wants to do is collect my tax dollars, and they can't even do that right. So for them to collect all that data and pull something out, something that I said somewhere along the way, I'm really not too worried about it. But just to make a stand on the TikTok thing, for me, the frustration is my stepmother is Chinese. She was born and raised in China, lives here now. And so her and my father go back to China often. Well, the hypocrisy that comes out of China that I think the average American doesn't understand is that, like, even your Wall Street Journal app, when you go to China, it won't work.
It's filtered.
So we have all
the Great
kinds.
Wall of China.
Yeah,
we have firewall.
There's all
China.
kinds of even just news apps that they ban over there.
Yes.
So they can bitch and scream and moan about, we shouldn't be doing this. But for people who are in the know, it's like, hey, what we're asking for from you from China is reciprocation. Let's be reciprocal, and let's play even. Let's play even ball. If we can do that, we're good. They don't do that. That's one of the main reasons why I don't have TikTok, because I don't really care if China hears what I'm talking about or not, because there's nothing that I have that I care whether they hear or not.
Yeah.
I don't think the president of the U.S. needs to have it in the Oval Office, but.
Well, I would agree, and I think it kind of goes back to something you said earlier for me. I'm with you. It's not like I have anything I'm worried about someone. I just, in principle, do not want to promote that.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm trying to dig in and trying to encourage that dig in. The other thing I'd throw out there that I think is a real... So the classic sci-fi novels and stories, I'll just throw out Philip K. Dick. What an incredible author. That would
Philip
be...
who?
Philip K. Dick.
Okay.
That's his name.
Okay.
And but Blade Runner. That comes from a story.
I would not shorten my name to Phil Dick. It's a good thing he goes with Philip Dick.
Wow. Just wow.
Philip K. Dick. But go ahead.
But he's a classic.
I interrupted you at Blade Runner.
No, he's a classic. And anyone who just heard that name, who's read like classic dystopian, they're like, yeah, he's the master.
They recognize that.
Yeah,
Dick.
he's just Blade Runner.
Like, I've seen that Dick before.
Blade Runner comes from one of his stories. And I'll just say that in a lot of his stories and others that are great and classic, it's not the government to fear in the future. It's corporations. And their money and their success begins to exercise a control and shape society because of the sheer power that they wield. That to me feels very possible.
This is right.
Amazon and, with Meta and Apple.
It's ripe for conspiracy theory.
It is
for sure, man.
But so here's the pushback I have on that. Okay, is that Big Pharma is responsible for like 70% of all TV advertising. All right. Now I know we're not talking about TV advertising or Big Pharma. That's not the subject.
But that would be a corporation too.
We're on AI. Yeah, correct.
Doesn't have to be tech. Yep.
So if you look back through the last few decades, nobody, as society as a whole, is not standing up and saying F Big Pharma, because they have absolutely 100% controlled the outcome of how we are today. Now, RFK...
They're drugged into submission.
100%. RFK is bringing some attention to that.
Yes.
But it's like we were talking out in the lobby the other day, whether it's the pills, the speed that was fed to moms, back in the day, or the crisis of Oxy and all the other stuff. Like, there's these peripheral things that we're really ignorant about that we create fear around. And as long as it gets enough momentum, like we keep talking about it, but there's these other things that are actual reality. It's not even a possibility. It is happening right now, today.
It's here.
It's here.
Nefarious stuff. You mean?
Yes.
Like
they're like
Big Pharma's grip is unquestionably.
They're misusing information.
We are one of the only countries in the Western world that allow for pharmacies Big Pharma to advertise online. That you can't put cigarettes on TV, but you can put all this other shit on there, and they got to give those disclaimers. You might have, you got restless legs. We got a pill for that.
Yeah.
But it may cause diarrhea, vomiting.
Try Shanukanakанide. It'll help you. Shanukanakанide. It's going to be
seizures,
some name.
and in some cases death, but you won't have restless leg syndrome anymore.
Yeah. Because Shanukanakанide, and then they list the side effects for about 45 seconds, and it's like
on 2 times the speed.
Could cause volcanic diarrhea for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
Shanukanakанide.
So that's that's why I'm like, hey, why can't our legislators grow a set and be like, hey, look, you know what? We may not know the full answer, but we're just going to push pause here. And they're not going to do it because of the money.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff that pisses me off. And then you have Biden come in and write some bullshit legislation where he's going to stop the development of certain AI and he's going to freeze it. I mean, I'm not convinced that he nor any of his group know the first thing about what's coming from AI. And you're going to legislate that, but you're going to let all these other guys, continue to accept money and not do anything about it when we've got case after case after case after case of how they are manipulating the American population.
Yeah, the historical straining at this gnat of what could be when they're swallowing a camel. There's an elephant already in the room, right? Yeah, and that's try to politicize this small thing that hasn't really developed into a problem when they're taking dollars right now from a problem.
Correct. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more.
And it was the same thing. I know going back to I didn't cover this, but when we had the session with BC, and we can get off the politics after this, but it was like when Biden did his EV summit. He invited Daimler, he invited Chrysler, Ford, Chevrolet. What have they done with electric and didn't even invite Musk?
Yeah, clearly.
Like no invitation sent, Right. But what he followed up with was, well, we need to look into that guy. It's like, what are we doing, Yeah. And so what I'm getting at on the AI side is I think everything needs boundary. I mean, everything is susceptible to run away and not be governed well.
And that's really all character is for me is good, healthy boundaries for me.
Yeah.
But whose wrist do you slap? I mean, when it's just like any other legal battle. You go attack somebody who has some nefarious intent with AI. whose wrist do you really slap?
Mhm.
All you do is chase them around the courts for a while, and it's a money
That's a
game.
bit of what's scary is because if
They
you
don't really, you can't, there's no teeth
Yeah.
to it.
well, you can look at it with Big Pharma. They let the cat out of the bag probably in the 70s with all that. And look at what we have now.
Yeah.
And so with this, while I still agree with all the problems we do have, it's like, do we want to let another cat out of the bag without thinking it through? And I'm not for crazy, ridiculous regulation, but just the kind of thought process and critical thinking of,
Yeah.
you know,
We have some
let's be
empirical
careful.
challenges. I mean, that are not conspiratorial,
Mhm.
but we were talking about this earlier about the grid, the electrical grid that it takes to run information data.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, it's a drag on the electrical grid. That
Cliff,
is
bring that up
substantial.
because I thought that was illuminating. The idea that we can get some are really worked up over electric cars putting some kind of demand on the grid
Right.
when they're not even
Anywhere
considering.
close to this data.
You were talking
thing.
about it, so
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to butcher this, but I'll give it my best try. So I listened to the All In podcast. It's probably one of my favorite podcasts. And David Freeberg, on multiple occasions, talks about the demand. So if this piques your interest, you need to go listen to the All In podcast. And one of the things that he mentions is the load that it takes to calculate AI and how that pulls on the grid. That is far more demand than what EVs put on the grid. So you would have somebody in one party say that, well, you know, I ain't gonna buy an electric vehicle because we don't even have enough power to power that, and I'm against digging out lithium and all that. Let's just stay with the combustion engine. But those same people would be for AI and crypto or whatever. Well, the ignorance in that is that it's, I don't know if it's 100 to 1, 10 to 1, 51. I don't know what the ratio is, but it's way more to compute AI. BC said in one of our previous episodes, he said that it takes the same energy to produce one image, just one. When you ask AI to produce an image, as that's the same power demand as it takes to run your refrigerator for 30 minutes. So 30 minutes of refrigeration versus 2 seconds of production in a picture. Now you extrapolate that out over hours throughout the day, and how many of our devices have AI running right now. And language modeling is one thing. That's fairly low demand on the AI. But when you ask AI to create a podcast or I did it the other day. I went to one where I could create a video, and this is what I typed in something like this. I said, create me a video for my organization of best practices on communication, communication using in the communication differences between email, phone, text, and Microsoft Teams. And then I had an option to select whether I wanted a 2-minute or 5-minute video. It took it maybe 3 minutes to render. And it was a British guy. And I would have showed it to my team immediately. I mean, it was perfection. Mm. But I have no idea what demand that put on my electrical grid for that to compute.
And scale across all the models that are available right now. You know, Gemini, ChatGPT, whatever Meta's using, Rufus. Who's Rufus? That's Amazon. Yeah, Amazon's Rufus. So I'm saying all these models. And right. Just since we started recording, how many images have been requested across the earth?
Yeah.
We had a brownout in Texas a few years ago. You remember that? The grid couldn't handle it. It was hot summer.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, just like whatever, thousands and thousands of homes all across Texas, no electricity.
Yeah.
And it was
while Cliff was getting that video rendered.
Yeah, that's what it was.
I bet if you linked those times up.
That was it.
I caused it.
Yeah, but no, it's the thought of that in that that's a bit of the manipulation that concerns me, is because I'm not saying there aren't high character leaders or politicians, but there's a lot of low character And low character, more and more what we see with low character is that to survive in a world that's changing as fast as ours, you actually, the secret to success is that you don't put anchors down. You don't create boundaries. You get more fluid, more flexible. Don't overcommit to anything. And so these type of people are going to continue to rise to the top, but they don't create security. They don't create longevity. They're in it for themselves. And so where am I going with this? Is that we're constantly being told by those who want to benefit from it, ooh, look over here, while we're ignoring something much more important. Oh, no, pay attention to this. And the world is being formed around that as we speak. Mm-hmm. And AI is only going to accelerate that.
Yeah.
And what will we do to curb that to some degree?
I think it's going to bring a huge amount of added efficiency. My personal concern is that I don't think as a human race that we're willing to accept that just because it makes my quality of life better, that it's better for humanity.
And that requires character. And I got to think about others.
And that's my concern. Yes. Is, and that tends to start with my pocketbook, kind of at the top. And then what brings me all of these dopamine joys, and so if you're not willing to be honest with yourself and say, well, we talk about trickle down economics. If you're not willing to be honest with yourself and look at the trickle down negative impact to third world countries, what are we doing to the planet? Again, if we go back to a purpose of stewarding and the collective health of the planet and the people, doesn't mean you have to be against all forms of advance.
Right.
But we need to count the cost before we just go headlong into it.
When I've opened ChatGPT on my phone and I'm asking it for a video or an image and it's going to cause a brownout in DFW, do I press send or do I say, okay, let me approach this in a different way? Just as a funny, it's like there are real world consequences to some of the choices that we make that might benefit us, might benefit me, but doesn't benefit us.
Yeah. So like right now, my son loves the fact that NVIDIA is blowing up. I mean, he's got a ton of their stock, right? But NVIDIA blowing up is a signal to us that AI is growing because they have one of the fastest processing chips. But if you fast forward over the next 5 years, what does it take to run all that infrastructure? Well, it takes copper lines to do that. So it takes more mining of copper, more refining of copper. Well, everybody knows I'm in the scrap business. We'll probably have a copper person on here before it's all over. That may be good for them, but it may not be good for other parts of the world. I mean, so that's the thing that I feel like sometimes we fail to do is look at things holistically. We just kind of pick something.
True.
I like where Elon is at and Vivek on the Doge side, because I think they're big on first principles. And first principles is let's go back to our why. All right. And so if we're doing AI, I think they go back to the why. Why are we doing it? And then let's just keep asking why, and that gets into our values. It gets into all kinds of things that we have to take into consideration, not just, does this make my life better?
There was a documentary, I'm trying to remember it now, in a book about how trains and tracks negatively affected the world. And it had kind of was an alliteration. I don't know if you remember this book or documentary, but it was trains and like something else, but just how it negatively affected. We thought it was a good thing, but they demonstrate how that it's brought wars and disease and actually wasn't a good thing. I mean, it's hard to know. I mean, how do you roll the tape forward to know? I mean, it's going to happen anyway. So
yeah, there's a cause and effect to everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
There's a cost to any kind of progress.
Yeah.
Always.
And
unforeseen too.
Yeah.
There's things that are going to happen that we had no idea.
I don't think it has to be unforeseen though.
Okay.
Because there's a book. The name's eluding me right now. I'll think of it here in a second. But
Something to do with trains?
No, not anything to do with trains or potholes or maps.
Oh, hey.
But
I was thinking just germs, and I want you to finish your thought, but just the
Oh,
idea
that
of germs to where
Yeah.
there might be something at work we've yet to even discover. So we don't even have the capacity to know it, but it doesn't mean that maybe if we look back, we might have done it different, but we're only working off the limited knowledge of anything that we have about something that in the future we might better understand. That's
correct. But what I'm saying is we're going to speculate how it's going to help us, and we won't really know that.
true.
So I think you can also speculate how it's could potentially negatively impact you. Again, I think it goes back to the problem. Like if I look at Tunco, one of the mistakes that we made in our 2020 goal. So from 2014 to 2020, we had a very fixed oriented goal around volume growth. Well, the book that I was reading, this is the book that I can't think of right now. The book that I was reading encouraged you to have a balanced scorecard. And on that balanced scorecard, you needed to be also measuring the potential negative impact that you're not foreseeing. Because you're trying to foresee what that growth will do for you in the positive, but you also need to try to see what the side effects of that growth might be. We didn't do that well. Now, I had the manual in front of me. I only took half of it. And I didn't realize that I was doing that. I didn't like consciously make that decision. Unconsciously, I just went with what I felt like was the positive. And I had the negative on my scorecard, but I never really wanted to take a look at it. And so then hindsight, once we got there, we were like, oh, well, this didn't have to impact us negatively if we would have been watching it. We picked up volume, but we lost margin. We, grew our company, but it impacted culture negatively because it was growing so fast that we weren't keeping up with the healthiness of our team members, right? So there's all these side effects. We probably would have in no way got everything right, but we could have offset, some of that
and done better.
Yeah.
That's an excellent point.
So like we knew enough about germ theory when we were putting trains in, right? We knew enough then to know that was going to have an impact on the people that we were coming into contact with out there, but we really just didn't give a shit because we wanted to conquer the West.
Without a doubt.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and that goes back to what you said before. It comes down to character really about, okay, am I going to consider my neighbor
we have to.
as equal to me, or is it just, just be damned with it? This is what I want, and I'm going after it full tilt.
Well, it's a runaway train. I mean,
yes,
you're not going to stop this. You know what I mean? You can think about all kinds of things.
Yeah, no, you're right. I was saying, but at least if we can't stop it, I get to interrupt Paul. Everybody,
Hey.
I was going to say, he took your thunder, Paul.
I got to interrupt Paul, and he let me. Woo! That's awesome. Woo! Woo! He's smiling. All right. So, but at least if it's a runaway train and we can't stop it, the least we could do is continue to see the basis of all society, any group, is trust. And that comes from, I want to think about you and not just myself. Like if all of us would just make a commitment to say, I want to make sure that in the efforts of meeting my needs or getting my progress or whatever works for me, I want to think about you too at the same time.
All right. So since we're on AI, let's do something fun here for just a second. We're kind of heavy right now. So I have two platforms that I use, but we're going to use Google Gemini for right now. Okay. So let's do where we talk about theology a lot and whatever. Give me a theological question to ask Gemini, something about the text.
Is hell a reality or something like that? Let's talk about that.
Okay, is hell real according
to the Bible?
To the Bible. All right. I just hit send. Here we go. The Bible describes hell as a real place, but its depiction varies across different passages and interpretations. Some passages describe it as a place of fiery torment, while others portray it as a state of separation from God or a metaphorical representation of the consequences of sin. Different Christian denominations and theologians hold diverse views on the nature and duration of hell. Some believe it is a literal place of eternal punishment, while others interpret it as a metaphor for spiritual or existing suffering.
Sounds like something Royce would say.
Exactly.
Wow.
You're pretty good, Royce. I mean,
The labyrinth, man.
it's the labyrinth.
I don't know.
I'm just the mouse and you're a labyrinth, bro.
Just chalk until I try
Where's
to say
the
something that
cheese?
makes sense.
So going back to my guy Freeberg, he sent out he made a statement the other day of how many billions or trillions of words there are in the entire internet. I don't know how you come up with that number. Maybe we can ask AI that. Let's do that real quick.
Would that be across other languages? I
How
assume?
many words are on the internet?
Now, if the lights flicker, we're going to have to weigh the cost of this query.
That's right. Might shut down this podcast.
Yeah, just, brown out incoming.
Mm-hmm. Your flight just got canceled.
I just look at my phone. It's
You
like,
better check.
Cliff, cancel my flight.
It says it is estimated. It says it's hard to know, but it says there are 100 trillion words on the internet.
What does that mean? Not banked words, not like a dictionary, because that would be
Just total pages. It just goes by total pages of the internet based on the average amount of words that are on each page.
Do you know what I just flashed on?
What?
Is 100 trillion words on the internet, and what's our national debt?
Oh, yeah.
Think about that. It's
Yeah.
at least a third of that number.
Yeah.
Is how much our national debt is. You would think there would be far more words on the internet that you wouldn't even be in the same
Yeah.
zip code
same
as the
zip code.
national debt. But
Yeah.
that's is it over 40? I can't remember.
I don't know what it is
40,
right now, but
50?
it's ridiculous.
I'm gonna look. Keep talking though.
So
The national debt.
one of the
number.
things that the AI platforms are starting to run into as challenges is they actually need more data. They need more data pumped into them. So when we talk about concerns that we have, one of the things that I have, so I have an AI information ban at Tunco. So you can they're allowed to use AI if it's general things. So I've told them you can use it to write a memo, email, whatever, if it is something that you can find online. But you can't use it. You can't pump data into AI if it is proprietary information, if it's IP. So I don't want pricing in there. I don't want anything about how we do our sortations or anything like that. Now you have open AI platforms, which is where you're pumping data in, and then so if it's Google Gemini, then they own that information. Again, goes back to your T's and C's.
Yep.
So that can then be used. So if I go on and put a lot of stuff about my operations, about how Tungsten does this and Tungsten does that, then that's no longer just my IP. That goes, they own that.
What happens to your information that's stored in the cloud? I mean, eventually you're using, off the shelf software to do this and that, and now your data's input in there could become, public knowledge in some way or used.
So the way I understand it, and if you're an AI guru, forgive me for totally butchering this terminology, but the way I understand that is closed. So for example, just like I use QuickBooks, I've got QuickBooks online. I don't have to worry about QuickBooks putting my financials out there on the internet about how much Tunco is making.
Technically, but you just
no,
wonder.
it's not technically. I mean, they would cease to be a business if that happened.
But it could be hacked, or it could be, you know what I mean?
It could be hacked, yes. But as far as them taking that, that's what I'm saying. So the ban that I have is you're not going to feed data into an open system that is giving them that information. Because Google Gemini, they already had a ton of information because they're Google search.
Yep.
Right. So now what they're hungry for, they're maxed out on how much they've consumed it all. So now they're looking for people. They will actually pay you to put information into that.
So along this line, on 60 Minutes, a few weeks back, they had a documentary type thing, whatever, newscast about kind of like AI sweatshops in Nigeria.
Yeah.
And they were hiring these people at a wage that's barely survivable, working them these long hours. It's either that or they have no job, right? And at least it's something that gives them a sense of worth and whatever. So they were stuck in these jobs, but they had them watching hours and hours of pornography, the most diabolical of the most diabolical sorts. And somehow they were supposed to be translating this into, information so that if you ask questions about whatever, they were scarred. It was like PTSD. They were suing the company, this group, because of the hours and hours and then the subsequent relational issues they had and just trauma personally.
So they were taking something that they were seeing on video and putting it in a text form and pumping that
something like that. It was they are inputting this awful stuff. I mean, everything from child pornography to just awful stuff.
Yeah,
diabolical.
Did you recognize any of those websites or?
No.
You might want to say that louder in the mic. He said no. I don't know if it picked it up.
Yeah. No, but the 60 Minutes coverage was really good. And I think that it does show you the kind of the underbelly of what can happen.
That kind of highlights, that's just it, is that a powerful tool. It's just like gunpowder, right? It can be used to feed your family and it can be used to create genocide.
Yeah.
And so
nuclear.
At nuclear, yeah, and it's the same thing. So I think it's really foolish to say but it's not to just be against progress, but it is foolish to carelessly run into new powers and technologies without the thought of what's best for all of us, and where could this go? Where could this lead? And what if this was in the hands of leaders?
Yeah.
Who have zero character and they only want power.
So if you're a government official and you're listening to this, please hear my honest heart say, grow a set of balls and start legislating, because that's what we pay the government to do.
Yes.
Protect.
We don't pay them. They are not in that position to bicker and do all this bull that they've been doing. They are there to legislate and ensure our safety.
That's right.
And all these pork bills and all this other crap that they've been doing, they need to stop doing that, and they need to get serious about protecting again and write things that work. If they disagree, that's fine. Go there, argue about it, figure it out. That's why you go there.
Yep,
you don't just
we
go
elected you.
Yeah, you don't just go there to vote on a pork bill. And that's my biggest hope for Doge right now. And I love the fact that got stopped. I don't know if you saw that picture that Elon showed of the bill versus the bill that actually passed. It was on X. The bill that they were going to pass.
Pork barreled, big fat thing. Yeah.
It looked like it was a foot to 18 inches tall.
Yeah.
And what ended up it got killed, and what ended up getting passed was like 2 inches tall.
And how did that happen? What was the process?
Well, we ain't got enough time to talk about that, because if you're an Elon guy, everybody's going to say Elon and Vivek and Trump, was already starting to wield their power. Other people say it was other stuff. I don't really know what the answer is. But the bottom line is, it's been a long time since a bill like that got killed.
Went from 18 inches to an inch.
Yeah. Yeah.
What if to end it on a slight high, right? Because we kind of dove into our concerns.
Yeah.
What is something on the horizon, AI wise, that excites either of you guys? Like what's something that you're looking forward to that can make your life a little easier?
The burden of leadership, organizing the burden of leadership, just giving you more time to do other things instead of just always hacking around on agendas and deliverables, and just organizing work in a way that you can look at it. It makes sense. Your KPIs, all of that stuff generated with some ease. I like that idea.
I know for me at Tunco, so I went through 3 assistants pretty fast, and we've already established that in my teenagers.
Was that their problem or was that your problem?
Well, what I was getting ready to say is, we established that in my teenage years I was a shithead. In my 20s I was an asshole. In my 30s, maybe both
Must
combined.
not have stopped.
I don't know.
We've run out of words.
But I'm not easy to work with. And yeah, I'm not
Was
easy
a
to work
trillion
with.
on Chat GPT. If you want to try to find one, there's trillions of words on the internet. But anyway,
Yeah. National debt's 36 trillion plus.
Okay.
there's a lot.
Someone's
there's
gonna be
several
listening-
trillion words
Someone's
on the
listening. They're
internet.
like, he never told us the national debt.
Yeah. Now you have it. So for me, one of the things that I've learned is that in communication, like let's say we have a meeting, like you were talking about your note dictation there, that little tool. All right. So let's say we have a meeting. Taking notes from what happened in the meeting is one thing. That can be a little bit cut and dried. But where I ran into frustration with executive assistants and different things is leading up to a meeting, I didn't necessarily communicate well enough. Or maybe I thought one thing and they thought another. And then you come into the meeting and you're like, well, that's not what I asked for. And maybe I don't say that in the kindest way or whatever.
Did you say maybe?
It would seem you could start some sentences. It would seem.
I don't have to go Jordan Peterson on it and say it would seem. Let's just say I was
love
an
that
asshole
phrase.
about it.
It would seem.
I'm just saying, I'm not going to say that about myself.
Just say furthermore.
Furthermore. Furthermore.
There's that one.
Yeah.
Furthermore.
Yeah, there's that.
Furthermore.
So I haven't had an assistant for a while because I realized how challenging that is, at least for me. But I've been using an AI assistant. And so before my meeting, I will pump some of this information into AI and AI spits it out in that form. Well, then when it's not right, it's very easy for me to just go in there and tweak it.
Yes.
And the difference in AI and a person, not that we're trying to replace that person, but a person has feelings and emotion that they put into that work. And that's where it always became a little bit of a challenge. I was a little bit insensitive of the amount of time that they put into it. It took that AI thing like 10 seconds to populate that. So I can just make a couple little changes and be like, let's go. So that for me is a huge time saver from a leadership perspective. And saves tears from somebody. If somebody doesn't have to put up with me, they can do a job that's more rewarding and fulfilling than working with me. But
no, that's something to be excited about. And I would say mine is really similar to your guys. The way I would say it is something needs to be created. And as a creator or content creator, sometimes I'm like, I'm staring at this blank page and I'm like, okay, where do I start? I'll ask this question, where do I start and what am I missing? Because I'll tend to, that's not the best way to think about it, but it's right there. I'm always like, what do I not know about this? And so I can just ask Chat GPT or whoever, and something will be spit out. And oftentimes it might be 80% there, but wow, it did it in 4 seconds.
Yeah.
And it spit it out. And it also brought in 2 things I wasn't thinking of. That
I'll be
gets me
honest,
excited,
there was somebody I saw wrote a book. I mean, they did admit that it was pretty much all AI. But I'm like, this is lame. You know what I mean? It wasn't your thinking. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's not
yeah.
like a starter. It was like basically wrote the book through AI and then published it as, like put their name on it, like da-da. And
yeah,
I'm
but
like,
that's going to be called
that's
out.
cheesy.
That stuff gets called out eventually because, like, even right now with students trying to use AI to write,
and they have sniffers now to
so
identify that.
So it's the opposite. The teacher uses the sniffer so like, especially, anything that you do that's digital, all they do is upload it and they're like, you've got, because for example, Andrea was she just graduated from Purdue recently, and they had an app where you would upload your paper, and before the teacher even saw it,
filtered
it would come back and say, you're pinged for this, ping for this, ping for this on plagiarism, because plagiarism is expulsion type thing. So
that's good.
And it would be so accurate that the assignment had been uploaded, and if you didn't reword the question well enough, it would plagiarize you for the question that was on your paper. So it's I think that's all going to come out in the wash.
I just think, the brain
as,
work that's involved in research and truly becoming an expert in some area, you just don't want to see that go away.
I don't think you are, because people who want to be Renaissance people really work. That's not going to change. Somebody who wants to be a poser.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, the idea for me, that's kind of why I associate it with the blank page, right? It helps a bit. And if you use it with, I would say, character. Number one, we should never steal someone's work, plagiarize anything.
Right.
And nor why in the world would I want to create something.
Yeah, why do you want to be a poser?
Let the computer create it.
Right.
But I've also gotten a few things here in the last few weeks where I'm reading it and I can read the AI in it.
Yeah.
Like, that is not that person talking.
Yeah.
And I don't want that. I don't want anyone to ever receive something from me or read something from me that does not sound like me.
Yeah.
But when you have like a lot of work, you could get something going or get a little idea spark and then shape a piece of clay a little quicker into you.
Because for people who are super busy, it's not uncommon to have somebody have their assistant write an email.
Right.
And they just sign off on it.
Exactly.
So like I had to send one the other day, and I said, I'm going to try this. So I'm using an app within, it will cross platform with Teams, but it's not a Microsoft program. It's called Decisions. And I had to send an email out. So I went into my AI assistant and I said, hey, send this person an email and cover this, this, and this. I sent one sentence like that. She spit me out 3 paragraphs.
I can see a whole enterprise.
And I just copied it, and I did change some things, but to me, it didn't necessarily need to be in my voice. I just needed the person that was receiving that information to know that these 3 things were the priority.
I could see a whole industry develop. I'm sure it's probably somebody's already doing it, but coming into offices like yours or creating an assistant for you, and they just do the setup. They just come in, they find out all your needs, they assess your business in a way that creates an assistant, and that can be an ongoing piece of work, for you.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is just talk to it, and things happen. That would be beautiful.
Yeah. So
I love that
helps
right
us
now.
Get work done well.
Yeah.
Same thing in that same Decisions app. Like say you were going to have a meeting with your team, and you're like, hey, I want to cover these 5 points. Well, you go into the AI assistant, and what it'll do is it just gives you it makes the outline for you. So you say, I'm covering these 5 points, and it's this person, this person, this person. Mm-hmm. Bam, she spits out the outline. Then all you got to do is fill in the blanks. So it's not doing all the work for you, but it's doing the prep work, which speeds things up for you. Because sometimes that prep work takes the most time. That's because you're just sitting there looking at a blinking.
Yes, that's what
indicator.
Takes me the longest is to get my mind in the vein to get it rolling in the right way. And as soon as that
often you're recreating it every week. It's like reinventing the wheel every time you sit down to do the exact same thing. And if you had a repeatable pattern and you threw some information in it, that assistant could keep you on point all the way through. I mean, that would be fantastic.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I'm saying this is a thing. It's here.
Exists.
It's here. This is what I'm using. And then
do you need us to explain AI to you?
Well, so If I can't point and click, it's over. I have to call my son or somebody. They're going to have to help me out.
Yeah. So then when my meeting is over, Paul, if I've recorded it in Teams and turned on transcribe,
right,
then what the AI assistant will do, I pull in one other app that works with your calendar, but I don't have to click away from anything. This is all seamless. So I push one button for her. I don't mean to offend anybody to call the AI her, but that's just the relationship that I have with mine. I'm like, hey, print out this agenda or the summary of this meeting. And so she will not only do that like the summary you were showing a while ago, but it will also, if there was a task assigned, she will ensure that those tasks move through to that person's email so that they know when those tasks are due.
Come on.
Yeah. And
I'm a little concerned.
I'm serious. I just push a button and it's done.
I'm a little concerned that you're in a virtual relationship with your secretary. Are you worried he's going to run off with his
Cliff, we'd like to
secretary?
ask you a few questions about the relationship with your AI secretary.
Well, the next thing is going to the AI developer. I I haven't
Your
refined.
hands just did this.
I haven't refined her yet, but you can see it had an hourglass shape to it.
Okay.
I probably shouldn't have brought this
Hey,
up.
so let me tell you one thing about that I am concerned about for our kids.
I'm agreed.
So if you're a parent, out there, if you are a parent, just listen to me for a second. This is no joking matter. Our kids are very prone to being stuck to these devices. We see that they are becoming more and more reclusive. Just Google AI dating, and it's cheap. And all you do is you go in and put your preferences in there, and AI will generate virtual men or women, whatever your preference is.
So it's an avatar. It's not even
It's not even a real person, but they look real. And you've put in there, just like a dating app, what your preferences are, what you like, what you don't like, what type of food you like. And you'll never meet them, but you will be able to fully interact with them. Even not, I'm not saying this, I know I do all my sexual jokes, but even basically like sexting, it will do that for you. So for me, for kids and people who are reclusive,
scary
culturally, that, I know we live in a free culture and free speech and the whole deal, but I'm just saying I don't think that's healthy. I don't think that's good.
Because the reclusivity or the stay inside all day, or really minimizing all human interaction to some kind of digital medium.
Yeah.
Whether it's a real person on Call of Duty, but if that's all your human interactions are.
Yep.
The brain is getting rewired, and it's not in a good way.
And I'm more worried about that than AI taking over our nuclear devices.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, Skynet coming to wake.
Yeah.
I agree, because what happens with what you just described is a young mind is being shaped that relationships are just really one way.
Yes, 100%.
And that's not real world, because when you have a relationship with a person, man, it is messy and it takes a lot of
super
work.
nuanced, everything.
Yeah, and think about if that's part of your formation, and then you go meet somebody and they're like, "Oh, you don't sound like Peggy Sue,
who tells me everything I want to hear. Never complains. Doesn't have videos.
Stedford
hair's always combed.
Yeah. It's so that, and I tell you, the way I came across it was when I was looking for, because I had heard on one of the podcasts about these AI assistants that I'm actually using now. I was searching for that, and it was like the third, like, you know how sometimes on the App Store it's like 2 at a time. It was like on the second or third rung. And I was like, what the heck is this? And full disclosure, I downloaded it. And because I wanted to say, I'm like, no, surely not. That this is not what it is. 100%.
Paul and I would like to see you delete that app.
It's already deleted. It's already deleted, Brother Farnsworth.
Brother Cliff. Gonna need to see that deleted.
Yeah,
great convo. And there's some things on the horizon. I think it's going to be very interesting, where we go from here. But I want to keep not only my needs in the forefront. I want to see and think about how this can affect all of us. And if it's not good for all of us, then weigh that decision very carefully.
I think a good way to balance it is character.
We
just need to think through this with
a little
bit of character.
I keep being reminded of the whole Tower of Babel thing. Nothing that they have imagined will be withheld from them. It's kind of interesting, that's where the whole thing starts, and it's kind of like going back to that. I don't know, man.
It's interesting.
There's a lot to worry about, but for right now, I'll just be happy to have some help with the workload.
Okay,
true.
Well, look up Decisions.
That's cool, and that marries with Teams, right?
Perfect, seamless. I'll show you when we get off here.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And Teams and Decisions, if you're listening, we will take sponsors.
They're listening.
My mic is on.
Let it be clear, they're listening.
All right, boys. This has been another episode of Misfit Social Podcast. Love you guys.
Fun stuff.
Always fun.
It is.
Love you very much, Brother Nance.
Bye-bye. Let's go.